Hi everyone, welcome to this week's market review. It's a Tuesday, and as always, we're going to be taking a look at the market, discussing a plan for the week ahead. And along with that, the main question is, has the market topped? What comes next? Where can we bounce? Let's get into the video. For a start, just a quick reminder that this video is for informational purposes only and reflects my personal views, is not financial advice, and please always consult a qualified financial advisor before making investment decisions. Alright, so a bit of a hot topic at the moment is the question that everyone is asking is like, are we topped? You know, half of CT think we're topped, 25% of CT think this is the dip, and then the other 25% of traders have no clue whatsoever about what is going to go on. So ideally, you know, I can give you a pretty neutral outlook in this video, even though my bias remains in that probably the smaller part of that 25%, thinking that this is a good opportunity where we can bounce. I still want to give you a neutral outlook of my thoughts. I've been pretty open in my videos about my thoughts on the market for the past few months, if not past couple of years. I'm very open. I'll always give my honest opinion on the market. And as always, we'll give a plan for either side, right? And trade for either side. You know, I'm here to trade, I'm here to make money, and I have an invalidation for my trade, and we'll discuss more of that today. So let's get into, you know, BTC to start off the video. Don't want to run on too long. It took me a while to gather everything together to decide really what I want to talk about and keep it short. But the main thing I want to discuss is obviously the fact that BTC is going towards this 100k area, right? And previously what has been a weekly support, and if anything still remains a weekly support until the weekly actually closes below here, right? You know, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 times BTC over the past 4 weeks attempted to break down below this sort of like 108, 106k area, and ended up closing back above. Again, here we can see that same scenario happening, right? In the current intra-week candle, we are breaking down, we are breaking this 106k region. So the 106k region was the level of interest for me to remain to hold on the higher time frame, not just on the weekly, but equally the monthly, right? It has been a really nice monthly support for BTC. You know, my current BTC position looks a little bit like this. I ended up buying through summer, and the invalidation for me was always if price was to break back down below 108 to 106, right? This was the invalidation for me. If price starts to accept below here on the higher time frame, then I would consider this to be a top, and I would happily exit the markets and look for what comes next, right? That has been my plan since we broke that area back in July, and that has been my plan since I started buying into this spot, right? So I'm fully into my spot. I think my average is around 111k. Right now, obviously underwater a little bit. Did round trip, you know, a 15% move on BTC, but nevertheless, my invalidation was not my entry, so I continue to hold on to this position. So what I want to discuss is the similarities to last cycle, right? And this is kind of what I'm looking at, right? If we do deviate here, so last cycle back in 2021, we can see how we deviated that high and we started to close below, and that sort of triggered a bear market, right? You know, we locked in this strong deviation, and essentially that's sort of what I'm looking for here to invalidate my spot position, based on the fact that I do believe if this deviates and if BTC gets stuck below 106 to 108, I'm fairly confident we're going for a really deep move over the next couple months back down to like 80k, and then maybe even as low as 60 sub 60k, right? And that would be sort of like the bear market low. Until then, personally, I'm looking for this to be a bit of a reversal spot, and I'm looking for us to reclaim back above, you know, 106, and ideally that saves our Bitcoin spot position, right? So there's a couple of reasons why I'm looking to bounce down here. The first is that I'm looking for a move into this developing yearly VWAP, right? Historically, over this cycle, the developing yearly VWAP has been a really good place for BTC to hold. It has been that local bottom time and time again. We can see how in 2023, the developing yearly VWAP was a good spot for price to bounce. Equally, 2024, you know, we did chop around that area, but again, it was a good spot to be a buyer. And, you know, since we flipped that 2025 VWAP back in April, we haven't actually retested it. So I think a good place to be a buyer is back down towards this 2025 developing yearly VWAP. You know, after all, we did reject from that developing yearly value area high, and we are trading back down into this area. There's a few other levels to talk about down there, like the Q1 value area high of 2025, and also the 2024 Q4 value area high. Overall, this main sort of level is that developing yearly VWAP that I really like right now. Then if we look at my system, overall, I think this is going to be a really good spot to print a buy signal on the quarterly VWAP and daily time frame. If we do get a move down into 101, there's a good chance that it will print a buy signal, which if we look at the history of this indicator and my buy system, buying when the quarterly gives a buy signal has been very profitable for the most part over the cycle, and has marked local bottoms for BTC. So a good opportunity to get long if we sweep down there with that sort of area marking and aligning with the developing yearly VWAP. I also want to touch on the fact that we are doing the same price action that we have done pretty much for the whole of the year so far, in terms of when BTC starts the month, we get that monthly open sell-off where price goes into my 2.5 standard deviations on the monthly chart for bouncing. Equally here, you can see the monthly opened, we sold off, and we eventually bounced back up. Again here, the monthly opened, we sold off, and then we bounced back up. Again here, we sold off, the monthly opened, and we bounced back up, right? And same again here. October was slightly different. This was the only month that we didn't do that. And again here, we can see the same thing. Monthly opened, and now we're selling off, right? If we continue to sell off into that 100k region, I think we're going to look at getting a fresh buy signal on not just the monthly, but also that quarterly, right? Which is very rare for Bitcoin to get a buy signal on that quarterly time frame. So this kind of remains that last area for me to consider a long and a swing long position on BTC, and it kind of remains the last area for me to look for a bounce before I start considering whether I should close my spot or not on Bitcoin. And if we do start to close below here and we start to see a break below 100k, I would likely look at capitulating my BTC spot, and from there on out, we've basically confirmed that BTC is in a downtrend. There's a good chance that this was the cycle top, and what we'd see is every sort of bounce being a really good opportunity across the market to short into any bounce that we get, and you just fade into the highs. And it has been pretty difficult to take shorts. I have been shorting a little bit based on my system, but for the most part, because BTC has been trading into like our key higher time frame support, I've been pretty neglecting to take a lot of shorts, and I have been shorting here and there, but mostly been looking at playing buy signals just based on the fact that the higher time frame support has remained intact. So if we do lose this support, then we should consider the fact that the market is likely topped with a much higher deviation happening on the monthly and on the weekly, and likely going to see sub 80k over the next couple months and even lower. But for now, looking for a bounce, like I said, looking for some relief into 100k and a short squeeze back towards like 110s at least, I think. And then if price does eventually flip back above 110, then we can look at probably targeting fresh all-time highs for the rest of Q4. I quickly wanted to bring up the Fear and Greed Index, something that I use a lot in terms of finding local bottoms on the higher time frame and deciding whether I think the market could be close to a bit of a relief bounce. We can see on the Fear and Greed Index that price has actually moved into 21, and since the bottom back in 2022, November 2022, you'll see that Bitcoin has actually, or the Fear and Greed Index paired against Bitcoin, has only traded into that sort of sub 21 region twice, right? First time was back in August, and that marked the local bottom in August, where the Fear and Greed Index traded to 17, and equally into that March and April low, where the Fear and Greed Index traded into 10, and again like sub 21. Once again, we are seeing the Fear and Greed Index trade into that 21 region, and when we do pair that against the idea that we are getting close to a strong overextension from the market and becoming quite far away from the mean, then we can look for some mean reversion across the board, and likely some relief, just based on the fact, historically it's a good opportunity to buy max fear in the market, as long as you have like other confluences, which we do have, and I just discussed on Bitcoin. The reason the market is weak right now is mostly because of the DXY, right? Since the last FOMC statement meeting from JP and from the board, they discussed the fact that there might not be any more rate cuts for the rest of the year, and the dollar index has responded quite well to this. It's basically been up only since the last FOMC press conference, and we can see that now once again we're moving into this all important $100 region for the dollar. It's a really important region for it, and if we did start to reclaim 101 on the dollar, then we would consider that this could be a really poor period of trading for crypto in terms of upside, and we'd probably see crypto move into like an official bear market if that was the case. But for now, as long as we move into this area on the dollar, I think it's okay to be looking for reversal and for a bit of relief from crypto, especially how now we see that on Polymarket, the odds of the Fed cutting rates is again increasing. People are starting to bet on the fact that the Fed are actually going to go against what they said in the last conference and cut rates this year. So that can be positive for risk assets once again. Now to move on to ETH. ETH monthly, you know, on the higher time frame, again, as long as the monthly support, you know, it's a similar outlook to BTC, right? As long as this monthly support remains intact, and we should be looking for higher prices going into the end of the year, into the rest of Q4 and into Q1 of next year. The obvious case is that if the monthly does deviate here, this is going to look really bearish. And from there, we're likely going to see a move back down to like sort of 2,500 from Ethereum. The weekly, you know, the weekly closed quite well, despite the fact that we've opened this week and continue to sell off, and which is not a great look. But, you know, we still have 5 days to go to the weekly. A lot can happen in 5 days, and this could still go on to reclaim sort of 3,600 to 3,700. This is my current ETH position. My spot position, I bought into 3,900s following the crash, and my invalidation for Ethereum was if price fails to hold 3,600 to 3,700 on the higher time frame. If we start to accept below here, then I would consider that this is probably topped, and like I said, we're going to be shooting down for 2,500. So in terms of my spot position, I still remain spot long on BTC and ETH. These are my only spot positions, have been for a while. I've only had confidence in buying into majors and just day trading altcoins. So from here, as long as like I said, as long as the higher time frame remains intact on BTC, and as long as this support remains intact on ETH and BTC, things look good, and we can see a bounce. Again, ETH is trading into quite a key level here, the 2024 value area high and the 2021 value area high. Also, we have the Q3 value area low down towards sub 3,400, which is actually a spot I'm looking to get swing long on Ethereum and take a leverage long. Same sort of scenario as I discussed on BTC. I think if we trade into sort of 3,400, that's going to be a super overextended environment for ETH and a good spot for at least a bounce and some relief in the market. And again, we should get a buy signal on both the monthly and the quarterly time frame and values based on a move into sub 3,400. So that's the spot I'm actually looking to get long on ETH for a bounce, and at least get a move back towards like 3,900, and ideally look at potentially exiting at break even if I can. If not, looking for much higher prices back towards sort of like 4,500, but it really depends on how we hold into this 3,700 to 3,600 region. ETH did backfill that Coinbase wick on that October. We finally backfilled the wick, and equally so did BTC. Both of these have now backfilled their October wicks. On exchanges like Bybit and stuff and Binance, which wicked a little bit more, they're yet to get backfilled. So always keep an eye on that. We can see on Ethereum, Binance, we can see the wick is back down towards 3,500, 3,400, which is where I was actually looking to get long. Maybe a sweep under here could be a good opportunity for a local bottom on ETH, and we can consider getting leverage long. And like I said, remain spot long on majors. Okay, to wrap it up, finally talk about some altcoins I've got my eye on. First one is Hype. If Hype gets a reclaim back above sort of a 40, 41, 40.8, I think that looks like a good spot for a reversal on it. I did have a strong buy signal this morning, but I actually missed this, unfortunately. Hype needs to get above 41. If it fails to get above 41, I could see this sort of bearish retesting and end up trading back down towards the 30s again. So we're going to keep an eye on Hype this week. Also ZEC, I'm actually looking to get long under 340 or into 340. I think that's a good spot to get long. Anywhere from 360 down to 340, I'm looking for some buy triggers to get into it for a bounce back to sort of like 400, and then a flip there. We can look for a move back to 500. I was briefly going to touch on the gold BTC chart again. Following on from last week, I've done a little bit more digging, looking into the gold and BTC chart. I don't want to get into this too much right now, but you can pause the video, look at the chart, and it's fairly self-explanatory. Basically, if we start to lose this 2018 to 2020 pre-bull trend on BTC gold chart, then I'm fairly sure this is going to be looking like it's topped, and we're going to be trading into that sub 20 region on the BTC gold chart. I'll do a post on Twitter and in the Discord at some point this week on it. I think I did one in the group last week. As always, the group are getting access to my thoughts, my trades, my streams as they are happening, all in real time. If you are interested in joining up, then the link to join the group is in the top of the description. come join us in Wealth Group as we look at trading the market both ways. We're trading really well at the moment, and I'm going to be streaming almost every day at the moment, as I have been doing. So make sure you check out the link at the top of the description. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like, click the bell. I'm uploading videos here weekly, and yeah, I will see you guys around. Have a good one, and stay safe. Bye bye.